Welcome and good afternoon. My name is Maria Luisa Boyce. I want to say welcome to those of you who are live and those of you that are watching us in the webinar afterwards. It's really an honor to be here and a pleasure to be here. My name is Maria Luisa Boyce. I am with UPS, and I am joined today with two wonderful individuals that are going to take us and continue us through the journey of what we are doing in our Women Exporter program on how to export. And export really is a power for growth. I know we have it there on the title. And it is fascinating for us to think about it as we're going to take you through the modules and the trainings that we're going to do. We're going to think of it as a puzzle, and every piece of the puzzle is going to give you the tools and the knowledge to be able to be competitive and continue to grow. And in the UK, I find fascinating in some statistics that were published in December of 2021, there were 99 billions of goods and services in 2019 that were exported by small businesses. And that was more than 700 million pounds over the year prior. However, only 1 in 10 small businesses export. And I know I'm taking probably Mark's talking points in here, but this is important to know because the potential for growth is amazing. And when we go and grow deeper as UPS, when we start looking about where is the need, or where is the need for that knowledge gap where we can go and help women entrepreneurs, small business owners to export, this is how we have tailored the presentations and the conversations today. And you're going to learn about the topics that you need to pay attention, how to do it, and most important, you're not alone. There's a community around you to help you. And before I introduce both my speakers too, I do want to thank our partners, OWIT, the Organization of Women in International Trade, the UK chapter, and OWIT, the international chapter, for being partners of ours and working together. So today I'm joined by, as I mentioned, two wonderful individuals, Ms. Sarah Bell, Public Affairs Manager with UPS, and Mr. Burkett. I'm going to make an introduction quickly of both of you now so we can let it out. Between the three of us, we have around over 100 years of experience. That doesn't mean we're old. It means we have accumulated youth and wisdom. And Sarah has been with UPS over 20 years, working on topics that help understand the markets, help expand sustainability, so many topics that have given her the expertise to be able to help you today. Sarah, thank you for joining us. And Mark, you have also over 30 years of experience working with the Department of International Trade. He is an Export Academy task advisor. And I love, Mark, that you have been in several markets learning how to export and how to work overseas. And we're going to hear from you later today. So thank you so much. Welcome. Some things to keep in mind. If you have questions, please put them in the Q&A. We will be answering the questions. And also, if you want to put in the chat any comments or where you're from, let us know and we'll be able to look at it. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sarah. Sarah, welcome. How are you doing this afternoon?
Fantastic. Thanks, Maria Luisa. It's really exciting to be here. And kind of in our first, we had the launch a couple of weeks ago, but this is really our first workshop to really start digging into some of the key issues and things that we can help kind of, help small businesses to start to prepare to export. So thanks everyone for being here this afternoon, and for those that may be watching this on a recording. I'm just going to take you through some things to think about as you start your exporting journey, and things that you can start to prepare and think about so that you can have a real strategy in place. As Maria Luisa said, there's going to be some time for questions. We've also got Mark on the line, who will also be sharing some of the resources that are available from the Department for International Trade. So hope this is really useful. Also, just to point out, in our last workshop on the 28th of June, we're going to be delving even more specifically into UK EU and UK US shipping. As we know, those are our two kind of big markets, and a lot of changes in those areas. So let's get started. And as Maria Luisa alluded to already, exports matter. And why do they matter? As we see from some of the numbers here, cross-border e-commerce is booming at the moment. We know that in the UK, exports total about $742 billion, and the top export markets for the UK include the US, Germany, China, France, Netherlands, and Ireland. So we know already that those are some kind of key markets that we can start to focus on as a small business and start looking to see where best to kick off from. We know British products are popular around the world. If you look at this map, the UK places in the top 5 of where online shoppers want to go. And they look at us, with some bigger markets like the US and China, the UK is right up there. And we know that global shoppers like the UK, they are looking for quality, they're looking for health and sustainability, and they're looking for uniqueness. And we know British products have those. And British products are really in demand around the world globally. We just had the Jubilee weekend, the long weekend here in the UK, and Britain is really at the top of the agenda globally. So it's a really great opportunity to take that, and really leverage it. Why, and again, for your business, you're a small business, you've got a lot on your plate. Why is exporting important to you? We know it can make you more productive. We know it can be more profitable for your business. We know exporters, companies that export can grow faster. They will employ more people. They'll pay higher rates. And it really can help make your business more sustainable in the long term in terms of being able to work with different markets. So when there's market fluctuations in different parts of the world, you can pivot and concentrate on other markets. So it's really key in terms of how you, for the long-term growth of your business and how you grow. So it's a really key area to look at. But I know talking with a lot of small businesses, a lot of the ways that you get into exporting is because all of a sudden an order comes in on your website, it's come from the US, it's come from Australia, and all of a sudden very quickly you have to figure out, how do I get my goods to that location? And it's not easy, especially if you want to be able to respond to that customer quickly, but you need to make sure that you're not going to lose money or lose a customer by not doing it properly. Excuse me. So it's really key that rather than being a kind of reluctant or passive exporter, really think about what do you want to do? Have a strategic plan. Think about it proactively. What are the destination countries that you want to focus on? How will you grow that year on year? And most importantly, and that's why we're here today, is really work with experts. So whether it's ourselves as your delivery company, whether it's with the government through the DIT, through our partners as in OWIT, there are a lot of experts out there that want to help and support you and make this a bit easier, because we realize you've got so much on your plate. Trying to be an expert in exporting is just one more thing on your growing list. So let us help you in terms of doing that. How does exporting work? Again, very basically, it's about creating a shipment, moving those goods to another destination, and making sure it's cleared through the local customs and delivered to your final customer. One of the things, that we talk a lot about at UPS is that the information about your goods is just as important as the goods themselves. So whether, whatever mode you're using, whether that's air, truck, ship, or maybe a combination of those things, the information that's traveling with that package, whether through the documents that go with it or through what you file electronically, having that information accurate and meeting all the regulations is just as important as the goods that you're sending, to ensure that it gets a very quick and efficient delivery. So what are some of the key preparations for exporting? So there's a few things that you can do to kind of prepare before you step into this world of exporting and moving your products around the globe. So know what your product is, know where your product is going, what are the forms that are required that need to go in. Again, it's that information that's going with the package that's just as important. When does the package need to get there? So thinking about the time and the speed that you want to get it to your customer, and how you're going to prepare that package. So if we look at what your product is, now I know you all know what your product is, you know it very intimately, you know it very closely, you've lived with this product for probably a long time as it's incubated and grown. But when it comes to the customs clearance piece and in terms of the paperwork that you need to fill out, you have to be very specific about what you're doing. You need to know what the commodity code are. So if you sell trainers, putting down trainer or women's trainer on your form is not going to be enough information. You need to identify that specific commodity code. So for example, in this example, it would be a women's sneaker with a leather upper and a rubber sole. And so again, there's some tools we'll talk about that both we have, that the DIT have, that can help you to identify what that code is to make sure that you're accurately reflecting that in your paperwork.
Sarah, and if I may jump in here,
this is
so important. I always call it, because I find this fascinating as for the entrepreneurs that are listening to us, think of it as a customs trade name and last name of your product, right? And that is always, you're going to find, this is one of the things that you have to remember, like you remember something that is special for you. This is how countries are able to recognize, right? What is that code? How are the countries going to recognize it? And this is what is going to, and I know you're going to talk about this, but I always think of the HTMS code. Think of it as that code that is going to help you how the internationally that your product is recognized. And the last name changes depending on which country you're sending to. So that goes deeper into the information, but I always think of it, Sarah, as the first name and last name of your product so that it is going to be recognized and move across the different countries.
Perfect. No, that's a really great example. Thank you. Thanks, Maria Luisa. Yeah, so I think, you know, again, that's really key that you understand how that product is named. And again, there's ways that we can help you to identify that. Again, you know, the next thing is, you know, where is your product going? So be sure that you're checking local country regulations about the restricted goods, the documentation that's required, and the customs clearance before you ship. So again, there's a lot of tools out there that can help you do that and make sure that you're preparing everything completely. So it's really good to understand what those requirements are before you actually ship your goods, where they then may get stopped in customs, and then there's delays which you're not happy about and your customer's not happy about. So that's really key. Know which forms are required. So again, ensuring that these forms are completed accurately can really help speed up that clearance at your destination market. So for top tips for your commercial invoice that you'll be filling out, you know, again, ensure that there's a detailed description for each item in the shipment. Each item should be on a separate line, and the quantity and value is stated for each item and for the total shipment. Another key thing really is the other forms that may be required to go along with that package. Things like your certificate of origin, electronic export information, or an export license. And one of the stories I always remember really clearly with the certificate of origin is really key. Several years ago, I took a group of small businesses to the US on a trade mission where we were kind of taking them to the UPS's home city of Atlanta and taking them through some of these processes in terms of getting goods to market. And we had a great company with us, which was a tea company that sold tea. And they had a bunch of their tea sent over to the US for an event that was going to be showcasing their product while we were in the US. And the shipment got stopped in customs. So we were looking into it to try to understand why did it get stopped. And it came down to the certificate of origin, where the owner of the business had filled out, well, it was coming from the UK. That's where it was originating. However, the tea leaves that he used for his tea actually come from Sri Lanka. So it's really important when you're filling out that certificate of origin that it reflects that, where the goods are coming from. So in that case, it was Sri Lanka. If you have component parts that may be coming from different parts of the world, again, it's really key that the final product reflects where all the items have come from, because that's a really key thing we hear again and again from some of our customers of not having that certificate of origin completed correctly. And it can, in this case, luckily we were able to get the tea in time. He was able to use it for his kind of showcase, but it is one of those niggly things that can really mess up getting your products to where they need to be. Speed. So, when do your packages need to get there? How are you, communicating to your customers in terms of how quickly they're going to receive their goods? And again, it's really thinking about both the cost and the speed. I talked about the different modes that they may be going on. So air is obviously your fastest, but it's also going to be your most expensive in terms of getting your goods to where they need to be. Road is a good way of balancing both that speed and cost. And shipping, it can also be that more economical and reliable service, but is going to take a bit longer, but also can work when you've got maybe a larger shipment that you're trying to get to a specific market. So really think about that speed and how you're communicating that to your customers. The other thing I'd also really highlight is don't forget about returns. One of the things we know from consumers is that they will check your returns policy on your website. And they will check that before they order to know whether they can return the goods to you. So think again, as you're shipping internationally, how do you get those goods back and what's going to be the most efficient way? Because a lot of customers will, especially if they're ordering something internationally, if they can't return it, they may not want to purchase it. So it's always good to think about that step of the process as well. From UPS's perspective, there's a range of services that we offer that provide both that speed and the economical service as well. So depending on what you need, there's a range of services there that can help you get the product where you need it to be, including a UPS economy service that's really good for kind of low weight, low value e-commerce goods that really can help get direct to your customer in a slightly slower service, but much more economical, especially if you're shipping multiple shipments. And then finally, in terms of knowing how to prepare your shipment, again, this is really key from how you're going to package your goods, what is the customs documentation that's going to go with it, if you're going to be able to file that electronically. Validating the address, making sure that you've got the correct address, including a telephone number, so it can get to your end customer, and also think about insurance. But the key point I wanted to make here too is about packaging, is really thinking about robust packaging so that you're protecting your goods, especially if it is fragile or could leak. Make sure you've got very robust packaging to protect your goods, but also think about the size of the packaging. When you're shipping something, you're going to pay based on dimensional weight. So that's both the size of your box as well as the weight. And the last thing you want to do is ship air. We've all had those boxes where we've ordered something small, maybe a book or something quite small, and it comes in a great big box. Not only is that packaging, it can be wasteful, but you're also paying for that size of that box. So really think about how you're shipping your goods and doing it both in a sustainable way, but also in a very robust and protective way so that your goods get to the end point as you want them to do. So where to get started? Where can you really start? If you're starting to think, maybe I'm sending stuff, a few times a week or month internationally, and I'd really like to grow this. So really, if you've got a website, have a look at your website and look at where you're getting web traffic from. Where are you getting visitors from? And look at where those markets might offer the most opportunity for you. Where do you think that you could really, have some opportunity to grow your product? But you don't need to venture far. We saw some of the biggest export markets for the UK being the US and Ireland and some of our closest EU neighbors. So you don't need to go far. Stay where you're familiar and where you're comfortable, either by language or custom culture or business norms. Maybe also think about places like Australia or India that have close associations with the UK. You have similar language, similar histories, and have a real appetite for British products. So again, think about where your product is going to fit best. Another key thing to think about is the landed costs, the duties and taxes that are going to be required for those goods when they arrive at their destination. We know, again, this is another key consideration for consumers when they're ordering something internationally. What is that total cost of the order going to be? They're paying for the goods, but they also don't want to be surprised when the delivery comes to their doorstep and there's extra money to be paid. So I think this is a key piece to really be very transparent about when you're advertising your goods. There's some tools that UPS have through shipping APIs or through going through ups.com that can help identify what those duties and taxes are going to be on your goods. And you can also determine how you're going to allocate that cost in terms of passing it on to your end customer and making that very clear at checkout what those costs are going to be. It may be that you're covering those costs, or you're going to roll it all up into one cost. And again, we just know it's very important to be very clear and transparent about what those end costs are going to be, so that your customer's not disappointed or surprised when there's an additional bill when they receive their goods.
Sara, and here I think, and we'll talk about this in the other modules, but something that is very important here for our businesses to take into consideration is also their cash flow, right? And how much are they going to pay? And we have a model just on e-commerce and talking about how you market and how you position, but these costs are important. And usually when you put free delivery or free this, nothing is free in life, just keep that in mind, but make certain that you're being transparent. And there's a saying in Spanish, of course, it has nothing to do here in English, but it says, cuentas claras, chocolate espeso. If you have all the information ahead of time and you're able to let your customers know this is what is going to be transparently your cost, that gives you loyalty for your customers and helps you with your cash flow, because you want to make certain you're managing your inventory and you're managing that cash flow.
Brilliant. Thank you, Maria Luisa. I think that transparency is really key in terms of the customer experience, and your relationship with the customers is really important. Again, there's some other tools, through UPS Internet Shipping or UPS Tradeability, which help you in terms of to identify what some of the requirements are going to be in the countries that you're shipping to, helping you with that product clarification, helping you fill out the forms that you need to do, as well as calculating those landed costs. So those are a couple tools that we can help you with. Again, there's some other tools, and I know Mark will probably talk about some of the resources available through the DIT. So again, that's where, the one message we want to really get out is, rely on what's out there. Don't think that you have to go this alone. There's a lot of information and resources out there that can help you navigate some of these kind of very complex areas. So next steps, last couple slides here. Again, think about, research your products, find the right tools that you need, maybe try out a few countries that you feel comfortable with, or that you have started shipping to already. Do your research, make sure you understand what's required from those countries, whether it's the paperwork, the packaging, or other kind of key areas that are going to, really help you get a smooth entry into those countries and not get your goods held up in that country. And really, begin your journey, and don't be afraid to take advantage of some of the opportunities that are out there through global e-commerce. And that's the key thing that the internet and social media has really brought, is that, it really levels the playing field between smaller companies and larger companies, where you can really compete globally as long as you've got this strategy in place. We'll share this presentation with you after the call. There's some links in here that help you, in terms of getting some of that shipping advice. I know we've had questions. We always get a lot of questions at the moment about shipping from the UK to EU, which we will cover in depth in a few weeks' time. But if you need something more immediate, there's some guides that we have, both from shipping from the UK to the EU or from the EU to the UK, as well as an exporter's checklist. So again, we will share that, and I know Mark's going to go through some of the resources that they have available as well. So I'll hand back to Maria Luisa at the stage.
Thank you so much, Sara and Mark. I'm adding you on the spotlight. Sara, thank you. Very interesting information, and definitely take us as steps, right? And to our attendees and participants, you don't necessarily have to work with UPS. We're sharing that information. We just want you to know you're not alone. There's a community of tools available. So now I welcome my dear Mark to the stage, and Sara, we'll do more Q&A later on. And if you could write the questions in the Q&A box, that's great. I know you're writing some questions on the chat, and there is no size limit, my dear Tina, but someone will answer to you, and we'll get back to you in that question. But Mark, welcome. How are you doing this afternoon? Oh, let me. Oh, perfect. Yeah.
There we are. Thank you, Maria Luisa. Thank you. And thanks, Sarah. It was informative even for me, a man of my long years in exports. It was interesting to hear your presentation, and lots of food for thought there. Thank you, and good afternoon to everybody. Good morning to some people on the webinar. I work for the Department for International Trade, and I think one thing I'd like to say, there were a couple of points that Sarah made, which I'd like to pick up on. There's a lot of, and I'll say this from my own personal experience in international trade, there's a lot of ambiguity and sort of smoke and mirrors about international trade. But I mentioned it earlier to a lady I was speaking to, that essentially international trade is one human being selling to another human being. And I think that's important to stress. There's a lot of effort put into sort of frighten people off from international trade. We mentioned 1 in 10 companies export. There's obviously a reason for that. And I think as the Department for International Trade, our objective and aim is to try and get through some of that mystique, if you like, for want of a better word, and try and break down the barriers, be they either perceived or actual barriers to international trade. We don't want anybody at all to be scared or worried or put off by the fact that they think they can't trade internationally. You can, but it's like anything in life. The best way to do anything is to do it in the best way you can. And what we try to offer here at the Department for International Trade are the tools to enable you to draw upon them as and when you need. I liken it when I'm presenting to people who are clients of the Exports Academy. Think of us as providing the tools which you can put in your toolbox. You won't use everything that we teach you, because some of the things you'll already know. But those, we identify your strengths, and obviously everybody has those strengths. It may be a product, it may be your sales technique, it may be your unique selling point of the products or services that you're selling. But we also identify those weaknesses as well. And what we can do is we can help to strengthen those. So we can give you the tools that you put in your toolbox, some of which you may use, some of which you may never use, but you've got them in your toolbox ready to draw upon them if you need to in the future. International trade can be, I'm based here in the West Midlands, and a lot of, because of the nature of what's gone on in the past historically with the West Midlands, it's been an industrial area where they've made lots of widgets and engines and all those things that have been groundbreaking around the world. But more and more now we're seeing people exporting their services as well. So we've got lots of people who are in the professional markets for the services that they provide, and they're taking them to export markets for the first time, and that's with our help and support. It's a free service that we offer, and I think someone mentioned before that nothing's for free, and that's absolutely right. And I accept that point, and it's a point well made. But I always think that when you're starting off, essentially you're looking at, you're looking at your budgets and you're looking at the finance, and you're thinking, well, we can't afford this, but we can afford that. And the thing to always remember with what we offer at the Department for International Trade is it's a free service. And I always think that anything that's offered to you which is free, you should lean upon and maximize the use of that. We've got experts in very many sectors. I can list them all, but or list some of them, but there's so many different sectors we have experts in. And we've also got the advantage, which I think is an advantage, of when you're sending overseas, it's nice to have somebody who's in situ in that particular country. And of course, we've got representation in embassies, high commissions, consulates around the world, and we can lean on those people. They're our eyes and ears on the ground, and we can take a client to them and say, look, this is what the particular product is or service that they're selling. Is there a call for it in the marketplace? What are people looking for in your particular region or country? And they can give us that feedback. Now, you can get that on Google. Everybody Googles everything for information nowadays, but what you can't get is the actual eyes and ears of people who are actually situated in those markets. And of course, we've got that as well. So we can call upon those people to help us. Basically, what the Exports Academy is about, which is my particular sector, we're here to, as I say, remove the barriers for new to export people who've never considered export before. And I must say as well, we also have people who've had a bad experience of exporting. They've exported, they've caught a cold, and it's put them off, and they thought, oh gosh, you know, it's not for me exporting. What we're trying to do is, it's a bit like riding a push bike. If you fall off on your first attempt, you've got two choices, haven't you? You either get back on again and you learn to master the bike, or you throw it into the back of the garage and never use it again and stick to your skateboard like I did. But that's the kind of thing that we're trying to get past, that if we can show people how to do it right, then that's got to be better than making the mistakes, because it can either be costly or, more importantly, it can put you off forever.
And
so
Mark,
we try and
I love what you're sharing, because that is so important. And how in your expertise, as you go through the journey and help them, what tools does the department have available to help them keep that in mind? Because that is, I think that is a mistake that many times are done, right? And the small businesses get afraid about exporting afterwards.
Yeah, I think what we cover is, Sarah touched upon it in her presentation, international. I think everything it's like any aspect of your life, really. If you fail to prepare, you know the rest of the saying. So what we offer, I don't like saying it, but you know the rest of the saying. And I think what we offer are how to internationally market research. So people may be sitting in the UK thinking, well, I've got a great product, but where can I sell it? Well, we offer you and show you how to go about doing your market research. Not only finding and identifying markets, but also doing your due diligence on who you're selling to. Because I think what's important is, someone, again, you know, it's been mentioned before, sustainability, Sarah mentioned it, but I think the important thing is we're not looking for one-off sales, are we? What we're looking for as business people is to develop a business that has got longevity. It's not a one-off sale. You mentioned about returns, Sarah, and it's a very good point. Someone I hadn't really considered, really. But it's important that you do cover all bases, because people will look and think, well, if there isn't a returns policy, why would I choose to deal with these people when I can go to another company who've got that returns policy? So it's doing your due diligence, I would suggest. International market research, pricing strategy is another workshop that we offer. And that pricing strategy, obviously selling goods in the UK is different from selling them in the far side of the world. You have to take into account different aspects, such as duties and anything payable locally in the country, which people may not understand, or even not understand, but not even know about when you're setting up your business. We go through all the pricing elements, whether you work with agents and distributors or whether you sell to the customer, the end customer. We have a workshop that presents for that as well. And right the way through, there's a whole range of them. Logistics, HS codes, which is important. As you said, it's the name, first name and surname of a product. But it's also, the way I liken it is, it's like an international language. It's that number is recognized in, you know, the Middle East as it is in America, as it is in the Far East. It's the universal language of exports, and that's important to understand as
Mark,
well.
And on that point, something that people might not realize, which I love about the UK government, you do all this research, you leverage your network of embassies around the world, right? To
Yes,
get
absolutely.
that market information for the small businesses.
Yeah, it makes international business localized. You know, I've sat in on very many webinars and Teams calls where we've spoken with the Far East, for instance. I was on last week with China, and some of the things that they can offer, you just wouldn't know. You would not know from the UK. It's localized information, which is absolutely invaluable. I know UPS have representation there. That's fine, of course it is. But, you know, what we would try and do as the Department for International Trade is present clients to you in the best possible shape. I see it as a journey in that regard, that, you know, if we can prep clients properly when they come to you at UPS, you're talking the same kind of language, which definitely. I think is invaluable.
And I think, Mark, from that respect, for example, we work at UPS, we work very closely with you guys, because that helps the full picture. And for example, Tina is asking us a question that makes sense. She says, how do I know legally, how do you to ensure that you're covered from with the language differences, that the legal terms are covered, if it's a country where there's in another language? Are you able to advise them on the tools, or be aware of what they need to be aware of legally and what the terms are in another country?
Absolutely, Maria Luisa. Where I mentioned about sector specialists before, we've got people who are basically involved in the legal side of things, so they can handle contracts, they can handle all the various legal aspects of international trade. We also have a lady who deals with the cultural aspects, because obviously dealing around the world is different in, I mentioned it before, but working in the Middle East is different from Europe. And in fact, even within Europe, and I'm sure we'd all agree, even between European countries, there's different cultures and different approaches to work.
Yeah.
So we cover those as well. But also we offer translation services. The one thing I would say about that is I think there's a price to pay for the translation services.
There's a fee,
yeah, there's a fee for that. But the fact of the matter is we've got guys who can tell you about the legal aspects. So particularly for whichever country, because obviously that varies around the world as well.
That is, and something, Tina, to be aware of. Leverage the DIT, the Department of International Trade, because like Mark says, they really do a holistic approach. Mark, so other questions that may have, and I know Sarah mentioned, we're gonna go deep dive into UK, EU, and UK, USA, but how are you looking at some of the, in general, Mark, how do you advise that from the department's perspective, if they are exporting perishable products or products that need more care, where they're going and how to take care of understanding the regulations at the point of origin, right? Like Sarah very much shared with us.
About the tea before, that's right. I think the thing is, as Sarah pointed out, and I think it's the one thing that, let me be quite clear, it's the one thing that we can't be 100% experts in, because individuals know their own products, you know, and I think that's important. So I think what I would also say about the Department for International Trade, we'll show you the best practice and the best way to do things. Obviously, it's down to the individuals in terms, and that's not a disclaimer. I don't mean it to sound as though it is a disclaimer, but if you're going to be selling a product, what I would suggest is you need to know absolutely everything about that product anyhow. Otherwise, you're not an expert in what you're professing to sell. So you need to be an expert in that. But in terms of the advice that we give, I would say that the Exports Academy, through the process of the workshops that we offer, we cover off, there's 10 core elements of the workshops. Again, not to avoid the elephant in the room, there's been some changes, he says very loosely, in Europe within the last 2.5 years. But because of the agility that we have, and I use that word loosely as well, but the agility that we have to be able to be reactive as well. I'm sure we'll all agree at the turn of the year, this year, there was a lot of changes with duty and taxes into the EU. And we were able to be agile enough to put individual bespoke workshops on October and November last year into December as well. So we were able to give our customers, our clients, the best possible advice to get them ready for the changes that were coming into place from January the 1st. So that's one thing that we are agile enough, and we pride ourselves on that, really, because I think a lot of people's perception from outside looking in is the fact that we're this giant behemoth who you know, too big to change, as it were, but we're not. And also, you know, there's people within the DIT who've got practical experience. We've been in your shoes.
Yeah.
You know, let me just tell a very, very quick story, if I may. My very first experience of sending goods overseas was a nightmare, and I'll hold my hands up and say that, but it was the one and only time it happened. And I sent a pallet to Spain, to Barcelona, and it went by air. And the one mistake I made, and Sarah touched upon it before about packaging properly, it was a full pallet of product. It was all labeled up correctly, the consignee, everything was right. Pallet 1 of 1, off it went. The one thing I failed to tell people was don't stack them. And when it got to the end user in a warehouse in Barcelona, the pallet that was 1.2 meters high when it started was about 0.8 of a meter high when it landed. And so guess who had to go back out to Barcelona? It was a hard job, but someone has to do it. I went out to Barcelona a couple of days later with about 300 boxes in my hand luggage and then my hold luggage, and had to go and rebox them. So all we did was break even on the first order, but it was the first and last time we made that mistake. But it's little things like that that you don't think of, you know. Do not stack should have been on the palace, and it was amiss of me not to do that. Fell flat
yeah,
on my face.
Mark, and I'm sorry that happened to you. The worst way to learn what not to do, but yeah, we see it happens a lot, right? Is the packaging makes, and we see a lot in the UK, a lot of interest also in small business, a sustainable approach and a green package, taking into consideration that it has to be a journey, right? And
Sure.
so something that I wanted to go, Mark, at, I know in late last year, DIT published a 12-point export strategy, right? Called Made in the UK, Sold to the World.
Yes, that's it, yeah.
Did I read that correctly? Is that something that the small businesses can leverage and use? So add it to the conversation with you as an expert, and then have that in mind as they're thinking about exporting?
Absolutely. I think it's important to mention, I will say it because I'm British, there's a lot of kudos around the world with Made in the United Kingdom. And that can't be underestimated because it stands for quality, it stands for safety and security, it stands for value for money. There's lots of things that you don't realize. When it says Made in the United Kingdom, it means a difference as opposed to made. And that's not decrying anyone else in the world, I'm not, but we are valued around the world, and we must emphasize that made in the UK, sold to the world is exactly what we're putting out there. It is made in the UK, and we are able to sell it around the world as well. So, you know, yes, for small businesses, you mentioned, obviously we're talking about people selling via e-commerce. One of the other workshops that we offer is your website internationalized? We all think we've got a great all singing, all dancing website, but can somebody see it over in the Far East? Does it make sense to them? Are you targeting particular markets? We can do that as well. We can give you details on how to tweak it so that you're actually specific to a region or a country. So there's lots of things that people wouldn't necessarily think about, but they're the kind of things that we can offer as well. And of course, the most important thing, how are you going to get paid? Because we don't like to talk about it. Nobody likes to talk about it, but you're in business to make money. And how do you get them to pay from overseas where they're, you know, it's not Great British pounds they're dealing with? How are you going to get that payment into the UK? So we show that in form of a workshop as well. And then of course we've got, moving on, my aspiration is to get people to a certain level that I can pass them across to the international trade advisors, and they're the people that will take them to overseas trade missions and virtual missions that we have to have during the obviously the pandemic. But there's different levels, different stages, but our aspiration is to get people exporting. If we do that, then, you know, people, and get them to enjoy it, because that's what it should be about.
Yes, right. And I think as we see it, so from a UPS perspective, what we have seen really, Mark, in the past 2 years, we saw e-commerce, because of the pandemic, we saw e-commerce grow in 9 months what we thought was going to take 5 to 10 years. And that has really opened opportunities for small businesses to connect with customers that otherwise they didn't think they were going to connect. And being able to export allows you as a business owner to hedge your risk, right? If maybe locally you're not able to sell as much, or the economy is something, you can export and go to others. And UK products, you're right, Mark, are so well received, and there's a great market for made in the UK on that part. I say it as a Latin US person. I love the products. So Mark, moving forward on this part, and I know you have mentioned some of them, what will be the top 3 areas where you see either businesses make the most mistakes as you are advising them, or the areas that are myths, that people assume something and then they realize it's not that? What would be those top 3 things?
Okay, to address the first one in terms of the mistakes people make, I think I would always say to any person that I spoke to about export, don't go with a scattergun approach. Don't say you're going to take over the world, because quite frankly, you'll never do that, you know, or you'll never do it right from the start anyhow. I think what we always say to people that we speak to for the first time is be targeted. So don't go thinking you're going to dominate America and then you're going to dominate the Middle East and the Far East. And, you know, unfortunately, people get carried away with things, and that enthusiasm is fantastic, but it has to be channeled in the right way. So target your market. So be country specific, even, or even, you know, say you mentioned there about Ireland. You know, one of the things about where we are in this part of the UK is we've got the Commonwealth Games coming up in the summer, just a couple of weeks away now. And one of the biggest barriers to export is language. Well, I think the figures say that something like 90% of the people involved in the Commonwealth Games speak English. So straight away, there's one of your barriers almost trampled trampled down. So, you know, the legacy of the Commonwealth Games isn't going to be us all running around jumping 12 foot in the air or running 100 meters in 9 point something seconds, although we can aspire to that. But that's not going to be the legacy. The legacy will be the connections that we make in the next few months, and then building on those, as I said, making new business have longevity, having sustainability. So that is one of the things. Language, I think, is a problem, but be targeted, be realistic as well. I think you have to be realistic. You need tenacity in export. You need, you know, there's so many times you're going to be knocked back or have setbacks. And I mean that by someone saying, no, it's okay, I've gone somewhere else. You know, that always happens in life, but be tenacious. Don't ever be put down. Not how many times you get knocked down, it's how many times you get up. So keep getting back, bouncing back, and be tenacious. And in terms of, how many is that? 1, 2, 3. And the second part, what was the second part of your question? Is there a second part to it?
The second part is myths that you that business have these preconceived notions about exporting, and then. Well,
yeah, it's a very good point you make. As you, somebody, I think it was Maria Luisa, I think it was you, I'll have to hold you accountable. Somebody mentioned I've got over 30 years experience in international trade. Thank you for mentioning the years. I was a child when I first started. But I think one of the things that you have to remember is that when I joined the DIT, I had to go through the Exports Academy program. Now, I'm an old dog. I've seen it. I've been there. I've done it. I've written the book. I've got the T-shirt. Everything you want to say about that. But when I went through the academy program, it made me think. It was thought provoking. So whatever preconceived ideas you've got, I'd like you to set, when you come to us, set them aside and learn, because every day is a learning day. I say that, you know, to my little puppy every day is a learning day. The kids are too old to be told now, but the puppy still listens. But the fact of the matter is, I think, put your preconceived ideas to one side and open your mind to a way of doing things that, you know, we don't profess to be all singing, all dancing, and it's an evolving world out there. Of course it is. You know, who'd have said 2.5 years ago that we'd have gone through what we've just been through, but and still going through, indeed. So I think the thing about it is, be realistic, but be ambitious and be absolutely tenacious. That's the big word.
I love it. So have a plan, be tenacious, be realistic, and really be open-minded. I think that's to not come to this. So Mark, last question before I invite Sarah to come to the Q&A. How do people contact you? They're asking us, what is the best way to connect with DIT?
Well, what I was going to suggest, I did have a slide presentation that I was going to make, but I thought I'd like to personalize it a bit more by being me, sadly for you guys. But perhaps we could distribute the slide presentation as well, and I'll put the contact details on there as well, and they, by all means, they can email me or phone me or whatever, and we can get moving within the Department for International Trade. Yeah.
That's awesome. Mark, thank you so much. And I hope for all the participants to appreciate the wisdom. We all started when we were 5 in the screen, working. The wisdom that we bring to the table, and the resources that you have available with DIT. And that's something that I keep saying, that I said it at the beginning, you're not alone. There's a community around you ready to support you. And that's very important. My dear Sarah, one question for you that came up in here, and understanding all the topics, is there a business size? This is very UPS focused, but the question came up, does UPS care about the size of the business that you work with?
Yeah, absolutely not. I think, you know, we will work with companies of any size. And I think what's really key with small businesses, and I've worked in different ways with small businesses, as I mentioned, taking on trade missions, on doing some of these workshops. And I think, you know, we have the scalability to deal with, you know, a smaller business, and really, you know, the tools are there, whether you're a big multinational or smaller businesses, we have the tools that are there to support you. So through, and again, this, I'll put the slide up at the end. You can sign up for a consultation with one of our team that can talk through some of the challenges that you're having. There's a discount code as well in terms of shipping. And there's a kind of a host of resources online in terms of, accessing what we can support you with. So again, make sure that you're taking advantage of those. Leveraging the expertise either through UPS or through Mark and the Export Academy. And really, our hope is really that we can grow with you. I think that's what is really exciting for us, is to see a small business that's maybe just shipping in the UK and starts to take that shipping internationally. And we love to see that, and we love to see that grow.
I agree. So going back, thank you, my dear Sarah. So my dear Mark, my dear Sarah, thank you so much for the words of wisdom, the knowledge. And a summary though for all of our participants, and as we talk about how to export, know your product, know your customer, know your country, do your homework, have a plan, and that really helps you. As a women entrepreneur, there's a lot of networks that can help you succeed. And I know we had one of our guest speakers when we started we had ITC, She Trades initiative, where you need to network, you need to connect and be able to part of bigger networks. You have OWIT, that is a partner here. You have what is called We Connect, which is a large organization too that UPS belongs to. There's a community and a family around you to support you and help you deep dive in these areas. And from the DIT perspective, I love Mark, the Academy, and the other workshops and information. Make time to invest in yourself and your business so that you can take time of doing the workshops. So with that, we're gonna say see you next week as we continue the journey of the modules and the training. You're going to receive this information. Those of you that are watching us in the recording, you're seeing it right now in our YouTube channel, and we'll be able to see this. We will receive more information, and the upcoming workshops are June 14th, the 21st, and the 28th. We're going to talk about logistics for e-commerce. Mark, that's an interesting topic too. I'm thinking about your boxes that didn't make it at the same size. But that is something that is very important for you to understand, right, Sarah? That logistics of sending packages, when you sell them online, that's a great success. You have to make it to the customer. So that's important that you understand that piece, and going through customs, right? What is the customer experiences, the sustainability approach of this and packaging, and understanding more in depth. We're going to deep dive on UK, EU, UK, US, and understanding the trade agreements. There's a lot of questions in that area. So I want to say thank you. I always ask my speakers, I didn't tell them ahead of time, words of wisdom. What is the words of wisdom that you have learned that you will give the participants? Mark, you want to go first?
Okay. I think what I'd say is there's no stupid questions. There's only stupid answers. And I think the important thing to remember is, as I said right at the start, when I started to speak, is that international trade is a human business. It's one human being selling to another human being. And I think you mustn't forget that, it's we're all the same. We're just different shapes and sizes and all those things. But, the fact of the matter is it's a human business, and be tenacious. Don't ever give in, keep going, and, do it the right way is what I'd say. It's always the best way. You mentioned very nicely my experience of the crushed boxes, but it only happened once, and that's because once bitten, twice shy, You only make that mistake once, I made other mistakes, but they weren't as dramatic as that,
Love it, Mark. Thank you so much. And I think that's a great advice. And that's why we support women entrepreneurs, right? Don't be afraid. It's a human business, and
Absolutely.
you can make it happen. My dear Sarah, your words of wisdom.
Well, yeah, you've kind of alluded to one. I was going to say, be brave. One of the things I am always so inspired by the businesses that I see, because, just to set up your business, you've taken a huge step. And I think, don't be afraid of taking that next step, because I think that'll be really key for your business and taking it globally. So be brave, be prepared, take the time to just do the research, get prepared to do that, and lean on the experts that we have here. Reach out to us, reach out to the DIT. We can put you in contact with other people as well. And yeah, we want to be on that journey with you if we can.
Perfect. Well, thank you. With that, have a beautiful rest of the week. It has been an honor to be with Mark and Sarah. Thank you, both of you, for your time. And to all of you, continue conquering the world, and may the force be with you. I'm a Star Wars fan, so be strong and continue conquering business. Thank you.
Thanks.